Welcome back to the United Pubcast, the official Man United Supporters Club here in Sydney for your Friday night pint. And Larry, only went one way to start Friday night pint. You got any beverages for me?
I've got my glass of red, mate.
Glass of red, very fancy, very obviously in tribute to Louis van Gaal. Obviously, we did mention that on a previous episode that our thoughts do go out to the Dutchman. Hope he is keeping well. But obviously, this topic will be about another future Dutch manager at Manchester United. But how has the week been? Because it feels like a while since we've done a Friday night pint, but it's good to sort of look at the week that was, because it has been a big week at United. Okay, no announcements, but big information has sort of come out. And regardless of that, you do have to look forward to the future, and the future in 24 hours or just over 24 hours, another cup final for United.
Yeah, 100%. Very excited for the FA Youth Cup final. But no, nonetheless, I think it's been a good week, Tom. It's an exciting time for United, and I think we have to have that optimism. Like I said last night, very much excited. I can't wait to talk about potential transfers. We've seen some links in terms of what Ten Hag has discussed in his interview with Manchester United and the board. I'm really excited by this appointment. It's the hope that kills, but you're seeing enough that suggests maybe Richard Arnold is allowing football people to make football decisions.
We'll get into Ten Hag in a little bit, but in regards to that, there's this sort of desire from fans all around the world, and I think it's a sort of like a societal thing as well, not just football, but especially in regards to football Twitter. There's this thirst and desire for information straight away. And we all know Ten Hag is going to be the manager now, but we want that official announcement. The club, okay, you look at Ajax is still in a title race, so they've still got things to play for. United is still in a huge race. There's obviously contractual sort of things which can sort of slow these things down. Is there a difference? Like, is there a pro or a con of announcing this now or not announcing? Let's say the players do know. The players have been told Erik ten Hag is confirmed the next manager. Is there a difference publicly announcing it to keeping it behind closed doors for the players, etc.?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Look, United are a machine. You know, I know that really bugs a lot of us, but the reality is they are on the stock exchange. Maybe the way they announce things impacts what they do or don't do. And you know, United, Tom, there's the marketing side of things. They have to brand it. They have to put graphics around him. He'll have to sit down, do some sort of interview, press release that will need to be ready when he's announced. And I think that's why it's not simultaneously. So, yeah, I think we'll get the inevitable here we go from Fabrizio Romano before it's official. But I don't really think that matters. I think the players, they all have their ears on the ground. They have agents. They'll be well aware of who the manager is when we all are. I'm certain of it.
No, definitely. Just say good day to a few guys in the chat. Hope everyone is well. Justin from the Supporters Club and Matt as well. Hope you guys are keeping well. Let us know if you come in tomorrow night to Scruffy Murphy's for the big game. Take advantage of a 9:30 kickoff. Be good to catch up with you lads. Mike, as always appreciate you being here as well. And Matt here saying they've taken Ten Hag as new manager off sports bet. Yeah, look, I think it's got to the stage now where could you imagine, Larry? Could you imagine the throw curveball and Pochettino gets announced now? Obviously, I think in regards to betting, I think all bets are off. Ten Hag will be the manager.
Sorry, mate. The rain is bucketing. You're going to have to repeat that.
We know Erik ten Hag's going to be the manager. I can move on, but in regards to Erik ten Hag, in terms of looking forward to the sort of future, as you can see from the thumbnail, there are a few players, and we'll try and keep this sort of discussion sort of real level-headed in regards to these transfer rumours, because, my God, there's going to be a new rumour every single day. And ultimately, how many players are we going to sign? 2, 3, maybe 4. But we'll be linked to 400 players. So we'll try and keep all these names sort of in check and sort of a realistic discussion in regard in it. But big one, Harry Kane. Where do you stand on that? And maybe not so much Harry Kane. He'll obviously sort of enter the discussion, but the striking position. Because obviously Edison Cavani's going to leave. Anthony Martial hasn't lit up any trees at Sevilla. You think he potentially will go, but who knows? Anthony Martial could come into this discussion. Rashford's not firing. Mason Greenwood is doing his own thing. Cristiano Ronaldo situation, his age, his contract, his status within the game, Ten Hag's system in terms of the way he wants to play. Does that suit a Cristiano Ronaldo? What type of striker does he want? What are you thinking in regards to the striker system or the strike-in system coming up over the next couple of months?
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I've never been a massive fan of Harry Kane, and I appreciate if anyone watching this wants to call me a buffoon or an idiot for that.
Last couple of years, I've been really impressed with him. Like, he's always scored goals, but my sort of respect for him has gone up in recent years.
Yeah, look, I see that viewpoint. He's a good player. I don't think that's up for debate. He's just not my style of striker. I think he's the sort of striker where you got to play to his strengths. And I personally like a striker that's the focal point of the team, that can complement the playing style, but isn't the reason why you play a certain way. We saw under Mourinho that there was a heavy reliance on Zlatan Ibrahimovic, for example. Not exactly the same type of striker, but similar enough. And you saw the way United struggled when he wasn't there. And I don't want that reliance on a sole focal point, because if Harry Kane goes through a goal drought, United are going to find themselves in a really difficult situation. And I think, yeah, I can see the other side. Erik ten Hag plays a possession-based game, and obviously Harry Kane's got a wonderful passing range, good vision. So you could see why he would fit in. It still, to me, reeks of a Glazer signing rather than an Erik ten Hag signing. That's just my opinion. I obviously don't know that for sure. But you look at the mold of, I know Hala is obviously a big body, but again, different style of striker. I'm not convinced. And I just think for the money you're going to get, the guy's injury prone. There's no mistaking that. He's 2030 next year, I want to say. I think it's a little bit risky. I think United need to look elsewhere.
Let us know in the chat your thoughts regarding Harry Kane, because this time last year, or not even this time last year, at the start of the season, it was all bets are off. He's going to go to Manchester City. He did that sort of overlap interview with Gary Neville on the golf course, pretty much putting a price tag on himself, and it was all out the door. I think he missed a couple of games for Tottenham as well throughout the start of the season and the transfer saga. I think his first game back might have been, he didn't play any of the preseason games from memory. I think his first game was against Manchester City, where Spurs beat them. I think he came off the bench. So do let us know what you think of the Harry Kane situation, and would you take him? And I think the Cristiano Ronaldo situation stops Harry Kane coming to United, because you can't have both at the club, and that's not a personality thing or a wage issue. I just think in terms of the situation, they both sort of dictate that role in terms of they both need to be the focal. You mentioned that term focal point. I don't want to use focal point in the same way you've sort of used it, but in regards to the starting spot up front, they're both going to sort of demand that, and I don't think that'll work. So I think if a Cristiano Ronaldo is to leave and you can't get that 22, 23-year-old striker, which we'll get into a few names, I think Harry Kane is that option, because I think, I'm not saying go out and sign him. That's definitely not the case, but I think he's a wonderful striker, and there's always that case. Now, yes, you do need to create chances for your striker, but ultimately, if you do look back throughout the history of Premier League winners, I'm not saying we're going to win the Premier League next season, but the team who wins the Premier League is the team with the best striker, usually. Now, obviously, if the best striker is playing at a club like Tottenham or something, obviously that's not going to happen.
Manchester City don't even have one.
Yeah, no, that's a strong point, but I've always thought if you can have the league's top scorer, now obviously Salah is doing amazing things, unfortunately, but 9 times out of 10, if you have the league's top scorer, that goes a long way to winning you a title.
On Mo Salah, Tom, let me ask you this question. If he goes to any other club in world football, do you think he scores the goals he does, or is he very much a beneficiary of Jurgen Klopp's system that seems to complement him?
Look, it's a hard one. I think I was a player I sort of never really rated too much during his time at sort of Chelsea, then went to Roma. Then there was another club in there, I forget. But obviously he has kicked on and developed into an amazing player, unfortunately. It's a weird one. Obviously, every player in Liverpool has clicked, and you have to give credit to them, their manager, their sort of recruitment department. Everything has worked there. Time will tell you if he was to leave, and fingers crossed he does. If he does go to Real Madrid, it's one of those situations when Ronaldo left Man United the first time. You thought he won't kick on from that. He won't get any better. He did. Now, is everything just
Ronaldo
falling?
was 24, to be fair.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that. But in regards to Salah, if he went to Real Madrid and won them the league or won the Champions League, would you be shocked? Probably not. So there could very well be a drop-off from Liverpool to somewhere else, but I think that will be the case for anyone. He's at the top of the game at the moment. Unfortunately, pains me to say it, probably the best team in the world alongside Manchester City. I think anywhere you're sort of going to go from there is a step down. Matt here saying Anthony from Ajax, who I've actually haven't seen too much of him in regards to watching the games live, but have watched 1 or 2 YouTube clips. My God, he is a player, and it'll be interesting when Ten Hag is announced, the Ajax players sort of will roll off the tongue in regards to transfer targets. And Anthony, in regards to our situation with a Greenwood, with a Rashford, with a Martial, with a Cavani leaving, okay, he's a wide player, but it will be interesting. I think he's one player who sort of fits the old-fashioned mould of what a Man United player is in terms of that exciting young winger. But the next striker I want to move on to, and this is a player I can hold my hands up and say I haven't seen play. I've watched a few YouTube clips of him, but he's the name who I think, besides maybe a big name, a Haaland or an Mbappe, I think the name that will dominate this year's transfer market is this Darwin Nunez from Benfica. Interesting one. I haven't seen him play, but from what I've seen on YouTube, I'm not saying he's the answer. My God, he looks a player, and what I look for in that type of player, whatever you want for in a striker, my sort of big pro and big tick in his box, he's 2-footed. Have you seen anything from really strong on both feet? He almost has it all. Now, everyone has it all in a YouTube video, but ultimately, he's going to be a name who is going to dominate the headlines. But have you seen anything of him and sort of heard and listened to the hype around him?
So was this Nunez that you're referring to?
Yeah, from Benfica.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've seen glimpses of him. The beauty of what's that channel we have? Being Sports. The beauty of Being Sports. You catch a few highlights. Again, it is highlights, and I'm not going to sit here telling you I'm an expert on Nunez. He does look good though. You can definitely see the quality there. Is well touted. A lot of clubs are after him. West Ham are interested. Arsenal are interested. I think that's why Manchester United should absolutely look at. I'm sure they are. The thing I like about him, Tommy, is he's got that perfect blend of he's actually quite sizable, but he's got pace as well. But he's got pace. Yeah. He's not a slouch. He can hold the ball up well, and I think it's a good age to get a striker. What United did well in their success was we didn't always get the complete player. I don't. Ruud van Nistelrooy might have been the last one that I can think of, if I'm being honest. I mean, if I think of United's success, Roy Keane wasn't the finished product. Wayne Rooney, we got very young. Ronaldo, we got very young. Michael Carrick, we got at 25, but he wasn't world class when he came to United. He definitely retired as one. So I think United need to go back to that. Get that player who's got undoubtedly world class potential, but isn't the finished article.
My fear with the Nunez one, sorry to interrupt you. My fear with the Nunez one there, in regards to you're saying that finished article or that player sort of on the cusp of breaking through. My fear with a signing, let's say Darwin Nunez is our number one target, and he comes in, Ronaldo leaves, and Nunez is the answer up front. I don't know what a transfer fee would cost for this guy. Would it be 30 million or 80 million? Whatever it is, it would be a significant transfer fee. I'm just thinking for that sort of size of investment and the stature of striker we're getting, he can't just do okay at United. He's either going to win us a Premier League title or he's going to be a failure. And I just think in terms of that brackets of that type of play coming in now, that's huge pressure. He can't come in for big money and lead the line for Manchester United and just do okay. He can't be a 6 out of 10 in his United career. He's either going to be a flop who will all one out in a couple of months' time, say, why on earth did we get this guy? Or it'll click and he'll be fantastic. I can't see him coming in and just being okay.
Look, you're right. Look, you can't cater for the fan base. And this is a realization I've come, and I'm critical of this as well. We need to, when we say we need to give managers time, we also need to give players time. Do you remember some of the commentary we saw around Jadon Sancho 2 or 3 months in? He was a flop, garbage. We wasted 75 million. He's 21 years old, and he's coming into his first ever period in the Premier League. Oh my gosh, imagine writing off a 21-year-old in 3 months into his Manchester United career. Like, we need to have more patience with players. I'm guilty of it too, but you and I always came on here, acknowledged his poor performances, but neither of us ever said, this guy's finished, he's not United caliber. You know what I mean? And I just think we need to have that patience when players come from overseas. We've seen with Sancho, we saw it with Mkhitaryan as well. The Bundesliga's when a player's doing well in the Bundesliga or in Portugal, Bruno Fernandes is the anomaly here. You don't always hit the ground running. So I think we need to learn to be patient. If this kid comes in, it's probably the perfect complement because he won't step on Ronaldo's toes, but he's good enough where you can bring Ronaldo in and out of the side. So if he's not setting the world alight, if he finishes next season with 7 or 10 goals, I think that's acceptable.
That's the huge issue I have with bringing a striker in. Now, I'm not saying we don't need a striker. A striker could very well be our most important sort of signing, maybe behind a number 6 or another midfielder. So I do understand and share the need for a striker. But it's such an interesting thing that you make the point in regards to, okay, in an ideal world, Nunez comes in and he plays a couple of games, and Ronaldo comes in, he plays a couple of games. We're just sort of playing this hypothetical scenario in our mind that Ronaldo is going to be happy with that. And I'm just thinking, hopefully that is the case. Hopefully he does sort of take not a backward step, but sort of listens to his body a little bit, and Ten Hag manages him, and Ronaldo is happy with that management of himself. But we don't know that that's going to be the case. We'd like to think that's going to be the case, and it very well could, in terms of he's not 32, 33, he's getting on now. But he's going to have to accept that at some stage, and he's smart enough to accept that he will at some stage. Will it happen this season? I'm not quite sure. But sort of moving on from this... Sorry?
I think so. I think he knows it. I really do. I think that's why you're seeing him. He's not. Ronaldo's got an ego, and I think no matter how old he is, if he's playing at 80, he obviously won't be. If he's playing at 80, Tom, I think if you pull him off the pitch, he's gonna be upset. He's that sort of guy because he wants to. That's what a good striker is. We saw it with Ruud van Nistelrooy as well. They live on scoring goals. If they're not scoring a goal, they're upset. And that's just the way it is. I do think, though, he's not naive. He knows at his age, he needs to be rotated in and out. We've seen his performances dip off this season because of the over-reliance.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting point there you make in regards to Ruud van Nistelrooy and sort of a bit of a comparison with Cristiano Ronaldo. Obviously, when Ronaldo came in, Ruud van Nistelrooy didn't quite see eye to eye with him at times, and it was very well almost the last straw that broke the back in terms of Cristiano Ronaldo was one of the main driving forces of getting Ruud van Nistelrooy out of the club. Ferguson had a decision to make, and he went with Cristiano Ronaldo. And Cristiano Ronaldo's game at that time was so far different to Ruud van Nistelrooy, and that's why there was that clash. But fast forward 20 years, Cristiano Ronaldo is that exact same player that Ruud van Nistelrooy was. So it's an interesting way how their careers, or Ronaldo's career, did turn out after that clash with Ruud van Nistelrooy. What a player Ruud van Nistelrooy was. But we'll move on from the striker position. I'd love to get everyone's thoughts in the comments regarding this one because this is interesting. And personally, I don't see anything in this, but we're going to discuss it. Kalvin Phillips leads to Manchester United. Player-wise, in terms of what everyone envisages in terms of Ten Hag's system and our need for a midfielder and potentially a deep line midfielder, you can say, yep, what a player. He'll suit Manchester United down to the ground. He's a Leeds fan. He's openly spoke about his dislike and his hatred for Manchester United. I just can't see this deal happening, even with money. Now, obviously, money changes everything. If someone offers him enough, he'll forget his dislike for Man United, and he will come. But Leeds and Manchester United, but I can't see it happening. I don't think there's anything in it. Jonathan Schrager, who a lot of people do believe a lot of his reporting, he's come out and says there hasn't been any talks. Whether that means there's interest, who knows? But just your thoughts on this one, because first the player, but then secondly he dislikes Man United, but at the end of the day, money talks. Could you see a situation where he puts his dislike to the side for a bit of cash?
I mean, on the player, I like him. I like his ability. I like his aggression. And on the ball, he's quite good. He's definitely an upgrade on what we have. I don't think he's the... If United are only going to buy one midfielder this season, look, I think you and I both agree United need two. You could even make an argument for three. I don't think he can do it by himself. If you're going to buy one midfielder, I think you're setting him up for failure. He's not the six to sit in there and run the midfield. I think he's absolutely an improvement, but he'll need an 8 alongside him. I just, in terms of what you're saying, look, I haven't seen the comments that you're referring to. I'll take your word for it. In saying that, not many people may know this. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer grew up a Liverpool fan. He ended up loving Manchester United more than anything, up to the point where when he got fired, he had tears in his eyes, talking about leaving his post as Manchester United manager. I'm not really too bothered by it. If he comes, buys into the club, falls in love with the club, which he inevitably will, I think you could easily... All he has to say, Tom, is, Leeds was a good time, but Manchester United's the pinnacle of English football. You'll forget all about his comments. I guarantee it.
You make an interesting point in regards to bringing another midfielder in. James here makes a comment. I haven't seen you in a comment before, James. Hope you're well. Hopefully you are subscribed, but always good to get a new guy in the live chat and their thoughts. Think we need two defensive midfielders, a centre-back, a right wing, and a striker this transfer window. And I do want to bring one more name to you, Larry, in regards to the midfield discussion. But just on that point James makes there, if you want to throw a Champions League budget into this discussion and a Europa League budget and what that means for Ten Hag and his sort of approach next season, ideally, we'll try to strengthen every position that's possible, or every position we can. You see Manchester United over the last couple of seasons, that's often sort of not the case. We don't get the deals done that we do need. What do you think? How many signings do you want to see done? How many signings do you think will be done? And will that be dependent on the Champions League or Europa League? We're actually going to spend more if we make the Europa League rather than the Champions League. Like, how do you see numbers-wise in regards to incomings happen this couple of months ahead?
Yeah, I'm really not bothered, Tom. I've moved past, and I think we need to move past this as a fan base. And again, I don't think it won't happen. But I'm not really bothered. If United spend 50 million and bring in 5 players, and those 5 players improve the first team and the squad, I don't think any of us would be upset. I'm not too bothered about the money. My issue is It's about the caliber of player that comes in. In Mourinho's final season, we brought in Lee Grant, Diogo Dalot, and Fred. In total, United spent £80 million. Now, that's a lot of money in terms of Diogo Dalot and Fred. If Fred was the caliber of player that Michael Carrick was, that 50 million looks like a great window and money well spent. If Diogo Dalot was the level of a Gary Neville or an Antonio Valencia, again, that money is well spent. Suddenly, we're talking about a great transfer window. And that's where it is. I'm not really too bothered about the money. I just want to see United's football project and strategy implemented effectively and bringing in the right caliber of player. Whether we're in the Europa League or the Champions League, that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, no, hard to argue there. And I just want to throw one more name to you and also the live chat. If give me your thoughts on this one. Tell me if I'm stupid. But one of the names in terms of midfielder, he's not linked yet. He will be linked. Jude Bellingham. I want that Jude Bellingham discussion to go away. He's not joining Manchester United this year. I think he stays at Dortmund for the sheer fact we have evidence of how Dortmund operate. I think Jadon Sancho was the one to leave last season. Erling Haaland will be the one to leave this season. They never let these two players go at the same time. I think Bellingham stays. So he will be linked. Everyone will want him. But if Jadon Sancho costs 70 or 80 million, Jude Bellingham at the moment is going to cost 150 million. So it's a discussion where, yes, I would welcome him at Manchester United, but ultimately it's not going to happen. Put it to bed. Don't even entertain the rumours. I want to take one step back from Jude Bellingham and look at, I don't want to say the next Jude Bellingham, but another young English player coming through. And the player who I've been impressed with this season, Jacob Ramsey from Aston Villa. I think he's caused United a few problems. I think he even scored a goal in the 2-2 draw at Villa Park earlier in the season. He's the player for me. Now, I'm not saying he's the answer and he's going to come in and solve our midfield problems or turn into a great Manchester United player, but he's that young player who, that Manchester United signing, which you talked about, that next big thing, the player ready to take that next step in their career, which Ralph Rangnick has alluded to as well. For me, I don't know how much you've seen of him this season, but this Jacob Ramsey kid for Aston Villa, for me, an outside chance or an outside the box thinking, he's the one for me. I'd be going all out for him. Well, when I mean all out, not 100 million, which Declan Rice would cost, but I assume you could pick him up for, well, unfortunately, Gerrard's in charge of him at the moment. He's going to put an extra couple of million on him. But I'm guessing less than 50 million.
Ramsey, isn't he? Unless I'm mixing him up with someone else, is he? No, I'm thinking of the Palace player,
Conor Gallagher.
Yeah, I was thinking of Gallagher. I like Ramsey. He's definitely high potential. I could see it. I can see what you're saying. I think United. I think Aston Villa would charge a fortune for him. That's the problem with the Premier League. If a player's got more than 1 year left on his contract, you're in a really difficult spot. And Aston Villa, as you've seen, I mean, they spent a lot in the last transfer window. Premier League clubs don't have to sell. It's not 2009 anymore. And Manchester United would be smarter or wiser to look for buys, even in the Championship. I think you can get good players. The bottom of the Premier League. If Everton go down, I'm telling you, there are players there that United could be all over. Allen improves our midfield. 100% he improves our midfield. Calvert-Lewin, I don't like his dressing style, but if he's an option up front, Tom, I think he improves United as well. There's good business to be done in the Premier League, but it needs to be smart business.
Are they though? And I know we've had a discussion about Everton in regards to the football structure and all these players coming in and maybe not quite fit in and not fitting with the manager. So I understand that. Okay, there are good players in there, and it just a collective hasn't worked. But ultimately, if they do get relegated or they finish in 17th or wherever, they finish there for a reason. So suddenly, look, these players do look good on paper. They have performed well in the past, but Harry Maguire has performed well in the past. He's not performing well at the moment. Rashford has performed well in the past. He's not performing well at the moment. And we're having discussions about their future. So if Everton go down, are we wrong to sort of be looking at bargains there? Or are we saying, hang on, these players got relegated for a reason. They're not good enough.
No, I think they're getting relegated for a great number of reasons, including the system. I think there are a bunch of players who don't mesh well together. They're different styles. They don't complement each other. This is a not as an extreme example, but I can point to this. Cristiano Ronaldo is the greatest player you've ever seen, correct? All right, maybe not. I know Diego. I think you'll probably say Maradona, but you get the point I'm making. Cristiano Ronaldo scored 18 goals this season. If you listen to commentary on Manchester United, there were people, including Wayne Rooney, who will tell you that this wasn't the right signing. Was Ronaldo not the right signing, or is he suffering because the midfield behind him's been poor? Is he suffering because Marcus Rashford next to him's been poor? Mason Greenwood's not available. Martial and Cavani are both not available for different reasons. I would beg it's the latter. So there you go. Case in point, Cristiano Ronaldo is a great goal scorer. But if the team behind him doesn't supply for him, he's lethal in the air. No one in the team can cross. Well, he's not going to be scoring headers then, is he? So that's my point, Tom. I think Everton do have good players. I think they've suffered the same way United have, just on a much more extreme level.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and I wouldn't disagree in regards to that, but it's one of those ones where, okay, I'm sitting here saying Ronaldo, I don't know if I'd call him a good or a bad signing. I think it's pretty much split you right on the fence with it. But in regards to that, an argument to say it's a bad signing, not from Ronaldo's point of view, from the club's point of view, is you've listed all these attributes Ronaldo has. Well, the good signing should have had the attributes that would have suited the, I don't want to say lesser players, but would have fit in with players who don't cross the ball and sort of thing. So that is an argument to say would be a bad signing. But Matt here saying they're too jealous in regards to Ronaldo's comment on Wayne Rooney and Carragher's interview, which was good to see. Look, I think there was a lot of banter around that. Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney are obviously very good friends, so I'm sure that is a bit of an inside joke and a bit tongue-in-cheek. But Ashby here, good mate of mine, the British tax will come again no matter which young, seasoned English players United will chase. It always happens to the big clubs. And that'll be very interesting in regards to, I have my concerns in regards to Ralph Rangnick's influence next season. But let's say in an ideal world, Ralph Rangnick is the one sort of suggesting players to the club and sort of collaborating with Erik ten Hag. They will see, okay, Jacob Ramsey, that he's the key player that they want. Hang on, he's got to cost 100 million. Not stuff that will go and get someone for Ajax or Benfica for 20 or 30 million. That is where you want the football sort of department to take over and sort of move away from, I'm not going to write off their careers, but let's say Harry Maguire for 80 million and Aaron Wan-Bissaka for 50 million, which looked good at the time. Then ultimately think, oh, could we done a bit of better business there?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I like Ralph Rangnick, and yeah, just have to look at what he's done with those two Leipzig sides. I know I'm deferring away from your statement, Tom, but on Ralph Rangnick, what he has done well, you can question his credibility as a manager, and he hasn't managed the team. He's managed the team once in the last 10 years. So I think you're right to say, maybe he's not up to date with the modern game, players' mentalities or anything else. But what he has proven over the last decade is he knows how to recruit, he knows how to find a bargain, and he knows exactly the type of player he needs to complement a system. I loved his comments during the week where he said he spoke to the board and he's made it crystal clear that United need to implement a system where the manager gets the type of player that complements the system. He referred to Liverpool and Manchester City in that respect. And I think that proves that Ralph Rangnick knows what it takes to run a successful football club. So United could, I'm with you. I hope he's the one who complements or at least works alongside John Murtough, who has never been a director of football, who won't know what best in class is. So they could do a lot worse rather than picking out of the Germans' mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. And look, I definitely don't disagree there. I agree with your words completely there. But it will be interesting when Ten Hag comes in and sort of we can maybe look back in hindsight and look at Ralph Rangnick's time at United and we say, okay, he did this well and he sort of could have done that a little bit better. And ultimately, I think it was unanimous when Solskjaer left. When Ralph Rangnick came in, everyone was really excited and thought, okay, yeah, he's the perfect man. But in regards to those jobs, in terms of what he has done at those other clubs, and he's done those sort of fantastic jobs not in the dugout, we all said, yeah, he's the perfect interim manager because of this, and because of this. Ultimately, looking back, he potentially was one of the worst interim managers in regards to it's not his job. He's there for the long term, and the part of an interim manager is to sort of get you through a tough period and just over the next couple of months. So it's completely the opposite of what Ralph Rangnick is there to do. He had a short-term job, but he's a long-term, not manager, but he's a long-term position.
Look, United were in a really difficult spot. I can understand why in hindsight people might say what you're saying, and it makes complete sense. But what option did United really have, to be honest? Yeah. I think they almost accepted the mess that they made with Solskjaer, and they had to say, all right, well, we're not writing this season off, but we're going to put our hopes into this manager because you're not going to get a top coach in a short period of time. I mean, the only short-term coach we could have gotten is Sam Allardyce. I don't know where United would have been if that happened.
Well, who knows? He could be in a job at Goodison Park on Monday morning if United beat Everton. But Ian here, good to see you, mate. Hope you are keeping well.
He was at Everton, wasn't he? Sam Allardyce for a period?
He's been at like every club 2 or 3 times. He has spells, he gets sacked and he comes back a couple of years later. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he ends up back at Everton. But yes, he was there at some stage. And sort of moving on to sort of from the football, sticking with football, but away from Manchester United just a little bit to wrap up the Friday night pint. Let me know, Larry, if this has been confirmed. I haven't been following the news too closely, or in the live chat, please do let me know if this is confirmed. 5 subs confirmed for next season in the Premier League.
Unfortunately, that is true.
That's the thing. Unfortunately, I'm not happy with it. And it may be Swid's opinion. Some people see the good thing about it. And for me, no. To change half a team, it's not for me. And look, I understand football, but sport in general. And maybe you can sort of go in a little bit deeper in terms of player welfare and how that's come into the game in terms of rugby league and NFL and across all sports. You look at MMA and boxing. Player welfare and athlete welfare has become, and rightly so, a far more prevalent sort of discussion amongst sport. And I can understand an argument. We always sit here and say there's too much of a demand on players. Some players are playing 50, 60 games. Then they have to go and play pre-season friendlies. Then they have an international tournament. So I understand the argument there in regards to a welfare discussion. But in regards to an isolated 90 minutes, now I know if you add all those isolated 90 minutes, that's when we're having a discussion about 50 or 60 games. But just in regards to the spectacle and the performance over those 90 minutes, 5 subs for me. Not a fan, Larry. Not a fan.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tom. I mean, I've seen some outrageous things the last 24, 48 hours. I've seen 100 minutes is being proposed for the World Cup. I don't know if that's official.
I think that one was a bit of a troll, but I did see that one. But the other one was that stopping the clock, which, again, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a really difficult one because I watch rugby league in this country. They stop the ball. They stop the clock when there's a stoppage, someone's injured, etc., and they just play to the 80 minutes. I think injury time adds a good drama to a football match, and I think you and I are very much the same. But this modern generation, man, I tell you, they just want to break everything. I don't get it. I finally understand when you're younger and old people tell you back in my day things were better. I'm finally
we're turning into them.
We are turning into them. I'm at the. I mean, I'm 27. I'm not old, but I'm already at that point, man. This Gen X breed, I don't get it, mate.
Well, Ian here is saying he likes the 5 sub rule, and look, I understand it does split opinion. So, Ian, do let us know what you do like about it, because in my opinion, I understand that the subs come in 3 slots as well, so it's not taking up too much time or any further time in regards to the minutes on the clock. But for me, just be able to change a whole team, it interrupts the flow. It has that pre-season friendly feel to it, in my opinion. But just on that stoppage in regards to the clock, so there are strong arguments. You look at when last time we played Atletico Madrid, in that last 30 minutes, the ball was in play for 11 minutes. So I fully understand and accept and want to listen to the arguments about putting sort of a stoppage on the clock. But in my opinion, you don't have to do that. Tell you what the answer is for that, Larry?
Tell me.
Better refereeing. Referee the game better. Don't fall for the time-wasting tactics, and then you won't have to... The ball will be in play for far longer. So many referees, and look, I've been guilty of it in terms of the way I butter referees up in a winning position and sort of time waste. So that is part of the game, but you do it because the referees aren't aware of what they are sort of playing into. And I just think there is no need to add that stoppage to the clock if the referees are aware and sort of do their job right. I think they're the biggest culprit in time wasting. We point the finger to the other players when they're rolling on the floor. And okay, Jack Grealish, he should get up, or Atletico Madrid, no one touched him, he should get up. That's a small part of time wasting. The biggest part is the referee falling for it, in my opinion.
I take your point. And yeah, referees can be better. It's difficult. It is difficult. There's a reason why we've been sitting here all our lives talking about how refereeing could be better. It's obviously not an easy job. It's
across every sport. Every sport's having the same discussion.
Yeah, mate. You're 100% right. Rugby league referees in this country, most ridiculed I've ever seen in any sport. Referees in rugby, it's a difficult game, mate. I'm telling you, being a referee in rugby league, you're watching the 10. You got to keep players on side. Got to make sure there's no fouls in the ruck. It's a difficult gig. I'm with you. I think the referees could be better, and I'd like to see time wasting called out more. We know that when you're feigning injury or you dive, you get yellow cards. We don't see it nowhere near enough. I'd love to see referees be harsher on dives. There
was a couple of years ago, and maybe not even a couple of years ago, I forget, it might have been a decade ago, potentially, where they started handing out bans, like retrospective bans for diving. Now, I understand it's very subjective and very hard to sort of provide conclusive evidence. Say, okay, that was a definite dive. Okay, I understand there's a little bit of contact, who's to know? Only the player himself knows. So I understand how hard it can be, but in my opinion, yellow cards, fines, whatever. If you stop a player playing the next week, if you say, okay, that's a dive, or you're rolling around and you got up, you went down like you were shot, then you got up 2 minutes later and made a 100-meter sprint, give the guy a three-week ban. Now, I'm not saying that's the case. That should be the answer, and that'll solve everything. But if you start banning players, that'll stop it out.
Yeah, I agree with you. But it's not just down to referees. It comes down to the parties above them. They need to give them the power to do that. And there needs to be a position by the Premier League, particularly. I think it needs to come from the Premier League. And you and I both know there's no leadership there. And it's not something we really talk about on this YouTube channel. But I'd support it 100%.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Well, look, it's a discussion we've been having for as long as I can remember.
What is going to happen?
We're going to be having it in 50 years' time.
What is going to happen, Tom, is Stephen Howson actually tweeted it. Let me get it up. Give me 1 second. Something around trial matches in England are going to go to 60 minutes. Let me get this up because it is absolutely really interesting.
I think that might be a case of, I didn't read the article, but along the lines of stopping the clock. So the game could go for 3 hours.
Yeah,
the ball will be in play for 60 minutes, which is about what it probably is at the moment. Over a 90-minute game, the ball is in play for, look, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm guessing of an article I probably did read was probably about an hour.
Here we go. I got it here. Trials to shorten football matches to 60 minutes could start this month. It is hoped that shortening games but stopping the clock for breaks in play will reduce time wasting and improve the experience for fans. You know what? I'm actually for a trial match, I wouldn't mind seeing it because if you actually look at the average of a 90-minute game, the ball's actually in play for 55 minutes on average across Europe. So I'd be really keen to see
you trial that.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, 100%. Of course. And look, I'm against it, but I have no issue with trialing and see how it goes. And look, by the next week, I might be the biggest fan of it. My issue with that, though, I travel over to Manchester, I spend all my money from Sydney to Manchester, the ball doesn't go out of play, and I'm there for 60 minutes. But the football is a 90-minute game. Okay, it's only half an hour more, but I just think there would be a situation where, okay, it's just one of those games where you're only there for an hour. I just think that's not football. Is that an argument, or does that sound stupid?
No, I take your point. I think what we need to be doing is looking at how do we keep the ball in play for the 90-minute game. I'm not a fan of shortening the game to do it the other way. I think, but again, like as humans, this isn't a psychology YouTube channel, Tom, but humans like patterns, humans like consistency, and we are resistant to change. You and I, since the day we were born and watched a football match, know a football game to be 90 minutes. And that's why we're against this. But for the young kid coming up who's watching that, they won't think anything of it.
Yeah. Oh, no, look, there'll be things I can't think of anything off the top of my head now, but things I would have hated when I was younger, where now they're just sort of, as you say, part of that pattern and things I wouldn't even think twice of that are just part of football now, which I sort of love and sort of did fall in love with over time. And that'll be the case now. Something I dislike now in 50 years' time will just be sort of ingrained in me and you won't think twice of it. But is there anything else ahead of the weekend that we do want to look forward to? Obviously, huge game. I'm looking forward to one, hopefully getting a step closer to the top four, but ultimately maybe, and that sounds bad in my opinion in terms of how this season has gone for me, I'm probably going to get more excitement, as I said, seeing Everton one step closer to the relegation zone. Yeah,
I don't hate Everton as a club, I know they're Scousers, but...
Why do you think that one is in regards to... There's this rivalry with Manchester and Liverpool, and we all know that. We don't need to get the ins and outs of how that has come about and what it has developed into. And obviously the success, you can say, okay, Manchester United, Liverpool, they are the two successful teams, so you can understand how that has come to a head there. Liverpool and Manchester City at the moment, yes, they're the two most successful teams, and there is a rivalry, but it's an on-the-pitch rivalry. The fans, I think, just annoyed at each other. There's no real hatred there. But should there be? Manchester United and Everton, it really should be the same as Manchester United and Liverpool. Everton were a huge club in the 80s and 90s. You look at Manchester City now and Liverpool, like it is Manchester versus Liverpool. Obviously, Everton don't share that name, but they are in Liverpool. And I'm just thinking, should there be more of a rivalry there, or is there a rivalry there we're not sort of awakened to?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Tom. I think you have your rivalries, but rivalry can only be fed when there's something to fight about. And ultimately, Everton have always been the little brother in Liverpool. That's just the reality, like Manchester City were in previous years. And I think that's where it comes down to. When Manchester United versus Everton, it was 3 points 90% of the time. Competitive game. I also think Wayne Rooney has softened that with United fans subconsciously.
Yeah.
I think we look at Everton as, oh well, Wayne Rooney played there. He came to Manchester United, and actually Wayne Rooney is probably the first example I can think of where a Scouse player came to Manchester United. And there was a big deal about it at the time amongst those in Manchester, the Manchester United fans in Manchester or around Manchester, Greater Manchester. So it's interesting. I'm not. That's what I think. Again, obviously, I don't know. You'd have to interview a greater sample size, but that's where I sit.
Well, in regards to Scousers coming to United, there could be one, which, look, this discussion for another day. We're just wrapping up the podcast now. But James Garner, he didn't feature in that midfield discussion a little bit earlier. But does that throw a spanner in the works for anyone who doesn't know that he is a Scouser? That James Garner, we're pinning all our hopes on him to be the future of Manchester United. That has never popped up in the discussion.
Yeah, look, again, I'm not bothered. James Garner loves playing for Manchester United.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, definitely not a criticism or anything, but it's just interesting. I think it's not that it should, but I'm surprised it's not more of a discussion than what it is.
Yeah, maybe. Look, at the end of the day, I don't know about you. I'm not really bothered if a Scouse, if there's someone who lives in Liverpool and they've supported Manchester United their whole life. Yeah. Power to him. That takes.
It'll be a thing. If James Garner starts the season has a bad game, trust me, it'll be a thing. Not that it should, but it will be a thing.
Oh, well, that's what happens when you got fat, annoying people who have profiles who shouldn't.
Well, you mentioned there just something, obviously, Friday Night Pint, we usually go off on one or two different topics towards the end of the podcast. And you just made a point there in regards to sort of something to fight for, sort of on the pitch and again in terms of rivalries. You usually bring up maybe this time of the week and something to do with WWE or WrestleMania. But for any UFC fans or MMA fans...
WrestleMania was sick, by the way. Absolutely sick. That was one of the best WrestleManias I've ever watched.
I saw Triple H retired.
Yeah, he did. He did, yeah. Hung up the boots.
Undertaker
into the Hall of Fame as well.
I saw Undertaker. I actually saw a couple of interviews with Undertaker. Iconic wrestler. But in regards to the debate I wanted to bring up, not debate, but the topic, moving on from WWE into something a little bit more, I don't know, lifelike. But MMA, there's a huge UFC card on the weekend, Larry. Obviously Sunday, so can take advantage of the early kickoff on Saturday night, have a few hours sleep, wake up Sunday morning, then head back to the pub for UFC. Was it 273 or 272? It might be 272. I've lost all my numbers. But huge card, obviously Australian, headlining the event, Alexander Volkanovski in a title fight who has done well in his recent fights. But anything on that? Because in my opinion, it is a huge card.
Yeah, it's a
Have
cool
you seen the card?
I have no idea.
Billy, hope you are well, Billy.
No, please inform me. What's look, I love UFC, but I'm just one of those guys who I turn it on and I'm like, oh yeah, like I know the fighters, but I don't really follow the cards all too much. Tell me who's fighting.
Matt here reminded me, 273. It is a huge card. Obviously, two title fights. Volkanovski, who's obviously Australian champion in the featherweight division, fighting Korean Zombie. You'd think, look, anything can happen. A fight is a fight, but Brian Ortega absolutely schooled Zombie a few months ago. And Volkanovski beat Ortega. Now, that's a little bit of MMA math for you. That doesn't mean Volkanovski's going to win, but surely you'd think the smart one.
Did you see the footage of Conor McGregor coming out of court? He apparently he said 170 is next. He wants to.
He can't come back to 155. He's huge. His 155 days are gone. He's too big now. There's no conceivable reason.
Sick. How do you think McGregor would go?
He had 3 fights at once. He's had 3 fights at 170. The 2 fights against Nate Diaz are at 170. Won one, lost one.
I think it suits him,
Obviously beat Cowboy at 170 as well. It suits him. It's a big guy.
He's a power striker, Tom, and that's the thing. I think with that extra weight behind him, and he's just got such a lethal left hand.
I wouldn't say he's powerful now. It's hard because he knocks out so many people. I wouldn't say he's a powerful striker. It's all down to timing. It's down to timing with Conor McGregor. There's a lot more powerful guys in the 170 division than Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is speed and timing, and I think that's why 55 is probably his ideal situation. At the end here, I think the people's main event, Matt bringing up here, Hamzat, I'm going to smash your boy. You don't want to see Conor McGregor in an octagon with someone like Hamzat or Kamaru Usman. Hamzat, for anyone, he goes into the WWE discussion, in my opinion. Hamzat, he is this weird character. I think everyone, even if they're not involved in it, knows Khabib Nurmagomedov. there's a bit of mystery around him, and everyone thinks this Hamzat is Khabib 2.0. He had this for about a year, didn't do any interviews, and was a really mysterious character. This sort of camp, he's come out, done a lot of interviews, and it's great to get that insight into someone like that. He's going to be a dominant fighter in the UFC, but he's a weird one because he's done so many interviews now. And you mentioned WWE in regards to Undertaker in his early days, and who was Undertaker's brother? Kane. Kane just didn't do an interview, and that sort of added to the mystery about them, and it sort of made them. They didn't have to say anything, but there was this aura, and Hamzat has had this aura about him. And if anyone is interested, go watch this guy because he does look potentially very special. Anything else to add here, Matt? One more Conor McGregor post here. Conor is coming to take Usman's title. Wouldn't shock me if they give it to him, and I would love to see that happen. But Kamaru Usman has been my favorite fighter for a few years now, so it would be a tough watch.
Pound for pound, he is. I mean, you can have the argument with John Jones. I know John Jones's career's been riddled with controversy. For me, he's the greatest of all time. I know he's got his issues away from the octagon, but John Jones is the best I've seen. I think he's phenomenal. Like, he dominated light heavyweight. He then dominated in heavyweight. Like, the guy's a freak.
He hasn't fought in heavyweight yet. He's building his frame to get up to heavyweight, but his last two fights at light heavyweight, I wouldn't say struggle. He won the fights, but he has made a sort of selective move to move up to heavyweight. But look, no doubt John Jones and his ability, but Kamaru Usman obviously a pound for pound ranking is number one at the moment. Fair play to him. He is an absolute monster. And obviously you don't want to see someone like Conor McGregor get in the cage with him because that is a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I think there was a time where, let me ask you this on Conor McGregor. There was a time around 2016 when he obviously knocked out Eddie Alvarez. There was this commentary or this idea that Conor McGregor was the best fighter in the UFC. Do you genuinely believe that he was, or was it more the fanfare around him? Was he just such a superstar that perhaps it clouded people's judgment? Or was he genuinely that good at one point before he flirted with boxing and obviously became richer and richer?
No, he was that good. Definitely now that you could argue about hand-picked fights earlier on in his career, but if you go back and look at earlier in his career, some of the fights he did have, he obviously had Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway, beat Max Holloway over decision. So he did fight sort of top guys. We didn't know they were top guys at the time. But you look at when he beat Jose Aldo. Now, yes, you don't want to say it's a lucky punch, but it's one punch. If that doesn't connect, it's a different fight. See how it goes. But ultimately, he beats a guy, it was Jose Aldo, undefeated for 10 years, knocks him out in 12 or 13 seconds. Then he goes and beats Eddie Alvarez in probably the performance of a lifetime. Performance of a lifetime. Then ultimately, you go back and look at the Khabib fight. It was domination. Khabib dropped him and won with ease. But ultimately, Conor McGregor was the only person to win a round off Khabib. He won round 3 after being smashed in round 2. So no other fighters have done that. Now, that's nothing to write home about. He lost the fight, but he is a special fighter, or was a special fighter. You don't know where his motivation levels are. But I always have that debate around David Beckham, and I've had this discussion with you. I think David Beckham was so disrespected inside the game, and a lot of people outside the game, if you showed them a photo of David Beckham, they'd say he's the best player in the world. We know that wasn't really the case. Maybe in 99, he's maybe close to that argument. But he was close for me. In 99, obviously, there was that argument. But overall, no, he wasn't the best in the world. But people inside the game wouldn't give him the credit because of what the reaction was outside the game. They'll sort of see that. They'll be pissed off with their reaction, and they'll downplay his achievements. And I think that happened within MMA and UFC. I think a lot of people saw Conor McGregor from the outside and the neutrals saying, yep, he's the best in the world. And then people within the game said, hang on, no, he's not. And really were annoyed at that sort of opinion and sort of downplayed his achievements. But if you do look at his achievements, historic. He'll walk into the hall, do his Billy strut into the Hall of Fame. Like he's
Vince McMahon strut. Let's not reinvent who introduced it.
Well, that's where he got it from. Then he names it after. He calls it the Billy strut in regards to Vince McMahon's net worth. Is obviously worth a few dollars. But I saw Vince McMahon had his top off for the last.
Man. He had a match. That 76-year-old man had a match.
I saw the
he
stunner.
Took the worst Stone Cold stunner I've ever seen in my life.
Fair play to him for doing that. Look, as I said, you mentioned the age. Look, it was embarrassing to see in regards to how that come off, but look, a bit of fun at the end of the day. That was quite enjoyable.
If you watch WWE, Vince has never taken a good stunner, so it was almost like a good laugh, a good sentimental laugh. But you know what? And I'll have one final say on wrestling. I know there's not many WWE fans out there. Well, definitely not like there was in the late 1990s. But if you look at the star Conor McGregor became, a lot of it was because of all his trash talking. That's exactly what wrestling is. That's exactly
that's what it is in terms of
Conor McGregor made a story of the fights, because if you look at UFC, Tom, a lot of it is just two gladiators going at it. Conor McGregor turned things into a fight. Why was there so much intrigue around the boxing match with Mayweather? The fight with Khabib. With Khabib, he had a criminal record coming out of the situation that occurred outside the octagon. Conor McGregor is the biggest WWE superstar outside of the WWE. In fact,
one of my favorite fighters growing up, Chael Sonnen, has based his career on the WWF and WWE. And I listen to his podcast. He makes always a great point in terms of there's always this debate now with Jake Paul coming out in regards to fighter pay, and they're not getting paid enough. And you look at Conor McGregor was earning $12,000 a fight back in 2013, and the next big star from the UK, Paddy Pimblett, is making the same money 10 years later. And you think, hang on, what's happened here? Why isn't he getting paid more 10 years later? So there is an argument around fighter pay. But ultimately, Chael Sonnen, who sort of Conor McGregor took a leaf out of his book, punches and kicks aren't enough. Okay, two people sort of in the cage having a boxing match or a MMA fight, that's not enough for the general public tuning in. You need a story. Whether that story is a rivalry, whether that story is controversy in a previous fight, whether that's controversy in race, it's a black guy against a white guy, it needs some type of story for people to tune in and be emotionally invested in.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think, do you know who Becky Lynch is?
The Irish WWE.
Yeah. Conor McGregor said something on Twitter this week. Becky Lynch lost her match. And she then, Conor McGregor said, why wasn't I at WrestleMania or something along those lines? And Becky tweeted him and she said, maybe next year. Got a lot of fans.
He'll be there eventually. You don't know how he's probably going to fight.
Can I say, Logan Paul fought at WrestleMania and he put in a bloody good shift.
Yeah, well, the Paul brothers, they are taking over. Fair play. I don't like them, but fair play to them. But just an interesting point, which I mentioned, would wrap this up. Just on the last point you mentioned there, or I mentioned the punches and the kicks aren't enough. You do need a story. The flip side of that and the argument, there's always a good argument in regards to you pull up to an intersection in your car and, okay, one corner, there's LeBron James playing basketball against Michael Jordan. On one corner, there's Lionel Messi playing Cristiano Ronaldo in a game of 1v1 soccer. On the other corner, there's Tiger Woods at a driving range or a putt-putt. And on the other corner, there's two guys you know nothing about, just two strangers having a fight. Who are you watching?
Well, you can answer that. You know my answer.
The two guys having a fight. It's a natural instinct for whether I don't know if any females in the chat want to answer, but it's a natural instinct for a male to watch two people fight.
I think if you think closer to home, rugby league. It's a boring story here. They always say little Joey's mum doesn't want to take little Joey to play rugby league. It's too brutal. The boys are too big. It's a gladiator sport. It's naturally attractive to me. Can I say though, in rugby league, there's been unsurmountable strides made in the women's game. They're playing a grand final this weekend. And man, some of the female rugby league, Tom, is better to watch because the men's rugby league is filled with wrestle and the women just hit the old technique. They get the shoulders into the ribs and they put you on your ass. The women go hard. And I think rugby league particularly, though, they need to look at weight divisions. Because obviously the Islander boys, I remember I played rugby league in my teenage years for a little bit. I'm not a big guy. For anyone who hasn't seen me in person, I'm 5'7". I'm Lionel Messi's height. When you're versing these Polynesian boys at 13 and 14, they're the size of full-grown men, and I think it's difficult, and I think that's what's hurting rugby league. I think it's a fairly safe game, actually. I just think when you're putting people who develop against, like the Islander boys, they develop at a different pace.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll just wrap up. I remember you just make that point there in regards to, well, I remember my mum had the same decision when I was younger. I wanted to go into rugby league because my dad was a big rugby league fan. I knew all the players, and mum said, "No, too brutal, go into soccer." A year later, I broke my leg 3 times in a year. So you never know what's going to happen. But until then, hopefully everyone did enjoy a bit of a casual chat on a Friday night. Please do leave a like on the video. If you are in Sydney, come down to Scruffy Murphy's tomorrow night to take advantage of a good kickoff time, 9:30 against Everton. And Obviously, we'll have a game there in a couple of weeks against Arsenal as well, which we'll let you know. And as Larry alluded to yesterday, a bit of a change is coming to the podcast. So we'll make sure you are tuned to all your social medias and make sure you are subscribed. Until then, Larry, obviously chat to you over the Everton match, and we'll be back on post Sunday for the review. Hopefully, review on a win.
Well, we might go live. We'll see how we go. But yeah, mate, we're definitely looking forward to reviewing that game, and hopefully it's 3 points. And dare I say it, United might still be in the top 4 race.
Time will tell. Let's see you tomorrow, Matt. Definitely. First beer is on me. Until then, hopefully everyone has a good one, and we'll chat to you when we chat to you. Cheers.
Cheers.